Special thanks to Squarespace for sponsoring this video. What if we took the F-15 and made it better? An eagle that could take off at highway speed, land in half the distance, and at nearly Mach 2 steer with its engines independently. Before the F-22 and before the F-35, there was an F-15 that quietly proved that fighters didn't have to obey traditional aerodynamic rules. And almost nobody remembers it. The reason that it existed wasn't dogfighting, but fear. The story begins in 1970s when the United States Air Force, facing the realities of Cold War strategy, started to worry about the future where runways might be cratered by enemy missiles. In such a scenario, the ability to launch and recover fighters from short or damaged runways would be critical. The standard F-15, as capable as it was, required a long, pristine runway to get airborne or land safely. Military planners and engineers began exploring how to overcome this limitation, and they soon turned to thrust vectoring and advanced control surfaces as potential solutions. By the late 1980s, this research culminated in the F-15 STOL MTD, which stands for Short Takeoff and Landing Maneuver Technology Demonstrator. The aircraft chosen for this radical transformation was an F-15B, which was then outfitted with a suite of exotic modifications, such as thrust vectoring nozzles capable of directing engine exhaust downward or upward, small canard foreplanes mounted just ahead of the wings, and an experimental flight control system that could blend traditional surface inputs with engine thrust direction. Well, say that all 5 times fast. The canards, adapted or rather Frankensteined FA-18 horizontal stabilizers, gave the aircraft additional lift and pitch control at low speeds, especially at high angles of attack where conventional control surfaces began to lose effectiveness. And the results were spectacular. The modified Eagle could take off at just 42 miles per hour, lifting off in a fraction of the distance required by a stock F-15. Landings were even more impressive, using a combination of canard lift, upward thrust deflection, and in-flight reverse thrust. This aircraft could come to a stop in just 1,650 feet. That's nearly an 80% reduction compared to a regular F-15. Perhaps most astonishing was the use of reverse thrust while still airborne. This capability allowed the aircraft to de-accelerate rapidly in flight, giving it a kind of air brake system unmatched by any operational jet of its time. However, this reverse thrust capability was used in a test-only context and was never intended as a practical feature for combat operations. Just engineers flexing while they were at it, basically. These upgrades to the F-15 really do make a case that perhaps these new technologies should have been an option for the military forces buying the aircraft around the world. Say, a whole new version of the F-15 that Americans could sell to air forces. Now, this would put it in competition with the F-35, which I know is sacrilege, but it does show just how good you can make the F-15 platform. So why didn't it happen? Well, I know for one reason. They didn't have a website, and they should have used Squarespace. That's right, Squarespace combines 2 decades of industry-leading design expertise with their own cutting-edge AI technology to now unlock your strongest creative potential when it comes to making a website. Squarespace now will actually recommend a fantastic design, creating one bespoke for you to reach your goals, meaning you're not looking at different templates that thousands of other people have used. The game has changed. But building a website is only the beginning on the Squarespace platform, because now you can also run email campaigns, you can run educational courses, or if you're like me, you can run a fan website with merch. That's right, I've got a merch store down the bottom that you can check out during this video. Head to squarespace.com for a free trial, and when you're ready to go to www.squarespace.com/found to save 10% off your first purchase of a website or a domain. We might not be able to get this upgraded F-15 for ourselves, but you can have a sick website. Yet this version was only the beginning. In 1993, NASA took over the aircraft for a new program called ACTIVE, which stands for Advanced Control Technology for Integrated Vehicles. If the STOL MTD was about battlefield flexibility, ACTIVE was about raw performance and maneuverability. This program made the F-15 pretty active in the air. You get it, because it's a very maneuverable... Never mind, let's get back to the story. The aircraft was re-engined with more powerful Pratt & Whitney F-100 PW229s and given new, fully axisymmetric nozzles. And what does this fancy term mean that I've struggled multiple times to say? Well, it means that thrust was not vectored just up and down anymore, but side to side as well, giving the aircraft rudder-like control directly from its engines. At the same time, the flight control system was replaced by a fully digital fly-by-wire setup that could load different control laws for different flight regimes, ranging from takeoff to high angle of attack to supersonic cruise. Flight testing between 96 and 99 revealed the full extent of this transformation. In April 96, the F-15 Active became the first aircraft to achieve controlled yaw vectoring above the speed of sound, steering its engines at Mach 1 and beyond. Later that year, in October, it achieved the vectoring maneuvers at nearly Mach 1.95. And this was absolutely insane because at that speed, the airflow around the nozzles is very intense. Ground tests had already confirmed the ability to perform a full 20-degree nozzle deflections at these speeds, and the program pushed the envelope to Mach 2, 6.5 G turns, and extreme angles of attack. It flew post-stall maneuvers that would have baffled even the best pilots in conventional jets, and importantly, it did all of this not with brute force, but with elegant software blending, a digital brain telling engines and control surfaces how to dance in union. The F-15 Active was like a ballerina in the sky. What emerged from these tests was a deeper understanding of flight itself. The engineers discovered that thrust vectoring could be used not only for maneuvers, but also to reduce drag by replacing large control surface deflections with subtle nozzle adjustments. This improved fuel efficiency and reduced airframe stress. The aircraft could even be flown in a limited fashion using engine thrust alone, foreshadowing later experiments in propulsion-only control for damaged aircraft. NASA also learned how to blend propulsion and aerodynamic inputs dramatically, allowing control systems to switch modes depending on flight phase. For instance, during takeoff, vectoring nozzles would do most of the pitching work, while in cruise flight, the aerodynamic surfaces regained its main role. This modular approach to control, allowing an aircraft to change its flight personality, was a breakthrough in adaptive flight systems. So what actually happened with all these cutting-edge breakthroughs? Did they eventually find their way into an active aircraft? So what exactly did NASA do with all of this data? Well, the legacy of STOL and MTD and Active is not found in a production line or a combat record, but in the DNA of every fifth-generation fighter that followed. The F-22 Raptor, with its pitch vectoring nozzles and integrated propulsion control, owes much to these programs. Its F-119 engines use control algorithms first tested on Active. And while the F-35B employs a different vectoring architecture, it still benefits from control integration and blended flight control concepts matured by NASA's F-15 programs. While the hardware from STOL MTD and Active was never adopted for frontline F-15s, primarily due to cost, added weight, and maintenance complexity, their influence reached far. Around the same time, the Russians were developing a thrust vectoring demonstrator with canards and twin-axis nozzles. It too performed astonishing post-stall maneuvers, often more dramatic but less measured than NASA's careful engineered tests. The Su-37's claimed angles of attack exceeded 120 degrees, and its ability to perform full somersaults in mid-air highlighted what brute force vectoring could do even if it lacked the software finesse of its Western counterparts. Meanwhile, the X-31, a joint US-German Delta Canard jet, pushed the boundaries of post-stall control using pitch-only vectoring and digital flight controls. It demonstrated reliable handling at nearly 70 degrees angle of attack and even performed flat spins under control. Unlike the Su-37's theatrical displays, the X-31 was laser-focused on data gathering and precision flying. And the F-22, while a production aircraft, also fits into this lineage. Although it doesn't use canards and relies on 2D pitch-only vectoring, it proves how much of the NASA knowledge was translated into a stealth-compatible, combat-ready fighter. Its angle of attack capabilities and energy-preserving turns reflect many of the ideas seeded in the previous programs. In hindsight, we could say that the F-15 programs were the last hurrah of 4th generation airframes and the secret training ground for 5th generation ideas. It didn't just extend the F-15's relevance, they helped rewrite the playbook for fighter agility and survivability. Their story is a testament to the idea that sometimes the most advanced jets don't carry missiles or fly in combat, they carry answers to questions that shape the future of flight. Hey, as you know, we're so close to 1 million subscribers, and I would love to get that number this year. So if you've been watching for a while and you love what I do, I would love a little subscribe button.